Okay, so I put on my Instagram stories an underrated, overrated question story box or whatever you want to call it. So I'm doing those right now. First one we got is melatonin, underrated or overrated? I would say melatonin is generally underrated. I think a lot of people aren't aware of its utility, especially when traveling, to reset your circadian rhythm. And it also may have some antioxidant benefits as well, but it also has some benefits as far as sleep latency, so allowing you to fall asleep. So there are definitely opportunities and applications for it that I don't think a lot of people actually use, especially when traveling. When I'm having trouble sleeping in prep, I'll usually implement it then, just at least get to sleep. But it does have a good amount of utility, at least to where I don't see a lot of people using it. Heeled shoes. I would say heeled shoes are generally underrated. I actually didn't even know about the benefits until not that long ago when I purchased some. They really have a lot of utility on machines, especially when you can't put like a squat wedge on a machine like a hack squat. They just allow people who have a little bit more limited ankle mobility to sit forward more onto their quads, get a bigger stretch in their quads. They improve the SFR for a lot of quad dominant lifts, or at least lifts that you would like to be more quad dominant. So I would say generally underrated. Lifting belts are overrated just because I see people using them a little bit too much often. Sometimes people are wearing lifting belts while doing bicep curls, and I think it's kind of silly. But lifting belts do have utility, especially for stronger lifters, people with back injuries, and just on your heavier sets in general to keep your core a little bit safer and your core engaged as well. Barbell rows. I would say that barbell rows, it's hard to say. Like in some contexts, they're underrated, in some contexts, they're overrated. I would say that the way I generally see people using them, they are overrated in the fact that people generally don't do them properly. They load up a ton of weight on the bar and they do these like air humps to try to get the weight up. That would be overrated in that application. Now, they are underrated when performed correctly. Having your torso very close to parallel with the floor, keeping a very strict technique, lightly tapping on the ground, eccentrically controlling the weight, getting a big stretch. Barbell rows done that way are completely underrated, and nobody likes to do them that way because you can't use nearly as much weight and it's not nearly as impressive. So barbell rows, strict technique, underrated. Barbell rows, bullshit. Air hump, overrated. Anything with a booty band. I would say definitely overrated. They don't provide any hypertrophy stimulus, muscle growth stimulus. They don't activate your glutes any more than just doing the exercise that you were trying to do to train your glutes would have. They are essentially, if they contribute to fatigue at all, just junk volume. They don't contribute to muscle growth and they make you tired. So you'd be much better off doing a lift that stimulates your glutes, starting with lighter sets and progressively getting heavier to your working weight, and just doing all of your work there. Sumo deadlifts, sumo squats, hip thrusts, deadlifts, good mornings, all that stuff is way better for your time invested and is actually going to cause muscle growth. I can tell you right now, all of you who do any of the glute work with bands, that those don't contribute to your muscle growth. What contributes to your muscle growth is all the other stuff you do with deadlifts and hip thrusts and all that other stuff. That's contributing to your glute growth or whatever muscles you're trying to activate or target. Any of the band work is not actually causing any muscle growth, and it's just really using your time, wasting your time. English muffins. English muffins, I would say are properly rated. I mean, they're good, but I don't eat them all the time. Five Guys. Five Guys is totally overrated. And you know what's underrated? And people talk shit about it all the time, I don't know why, is fucking In-N-Out. In-N-Out is totally underrated for the cost, for the consistency, and for the simplicity. If you ever want to go somewhere and just want a good burger that's always the same, it's consistently good, it doesn't have a bunch of shit going on with it, In-N-Out is the place to go. Five Guys is just, it's nearing that specialty burger. The price is up there, and it's it's just a burger. Like it sometimes there's too much going on. I mean, obviously if you get like a cheeseburger or whatever, it's good, but I don't think anything beats In-N-Out. I'm sorry. I just think overall it's a good burger and it's very consistent. Tren. Trenbolone is totally overrated. Very, very limited application to where I would see it appropriately used. It has a ton of side effects. It's deleterious to health. It's neurotoxic, liver toxic, kidney toxic, and it's generally overused. So the way you would deploy something like Trenbolone is you'd look at when it was used in a clinical setting, and this is how I deploy most of these medications. When it was deployed in a clinical setting, how much was used? Well, when it's deployed in a clinical setting, it was like 50 to 100 milligrams. And there are people using 400 milligrams a week. All you need to get the most out of that drug and the actions of that drug are near that dosage. And what you get beyond that dosage is often just side effects and negative health consequences. So Trenbolone is totally overrated. Doesn't need to be used in the off season. Doesn't need to be used any other time of year except for potentially as an anti-catabolic agent while trying to preserve muscle in a dieting phase, getting really lean, not like 10%, but so yeah, Trenbolone, very limited use, totally overrated. Anadrol, the GOAT. Anadrol, for me, I would say is overrated. I get such bad side effects on Anadrol. It just like, I remember the last time I took it, it was like a couple of days in and I went into work and my face got so puffy and like almost discolored. And people were asking me like if I was sick at work. I'm just super sensitive to it. I can't eat on it. It's just like it's not a great drug for me. Maybe I was applying it incorrectly at the time. You know, I didn't know as much as I do now. I can definitely see the utility for it in an acute sense, trying to drive up strength, especially taken in like a pre-workout context. I've also seen some stuff for competition, specifically glycogen retention and muscle fullness. Maybe it has some utility there as well, especially if you're really, really lean. I would be picky about when I tend to use it and the length of exposure that I generally expose myself to. I will say I've heard that for the people who can tolerate it, it does a lot of great stuff for them. But again, I would weigh that against the side effects and just really, really be picky about when I want to use that, especially off-season context. Just when you have already water retention due to higher aromatase gear and all the food volume and all that stuff, it might be not the greatest time to deploy it. But that being said, I can't say that I've never deployed something in a pre-workout context to get some performance benefits from it. So, your girlfriend. I would say that girlfriends are overrated. I would say that if you have working arms and hands and probably opposable thumbs and a working internet connection, you can get a lot of the enjoyment of having a girlfriend without the other stuff that comes along with it. All right, guys, that's all of them for today. This has been Underrated, Overrated. If you want to see more, shoot me a DM or leave them on the questions that I do weekly on the Instagram, and I'll maybe keep this as a reoccurring thing.